Hello and welcome to Namaste to a Golden Child podcast, the podcast to help you to reconnect with your inner child to live the life you truly desire. And here's our awesome intro. Round 5. Welcome back. And today we have a beautiful and fantastic guest from the United States, Michelle. Thank you so much for coming to the Golden Child podcast.
Oh, it's my pleasure to be here. Thank you for having me.
Why don't you introduce yourself to our viewers and listeners? You basically tell us a little bit about your story, what you're doing, your background, your education, a little bit of an overview of who you are.
Absolutely. Yeah. I'm Dr. Michelle Dexter, and I am an integrative psychologist and sexologist. I own the Bamboo Garden Wellness Center in Encinitas, California, right out of the city of San Diego. And my story about how I became an integrative psychologist, sexologist is maybe compelling. So I was raised in a fundamentalist Christian household. And there was a lot of sex negativity in that culture, including the idea that you really shouldn't be sexual until you're married. So, no masturbation, no kissing with open mouths, really nothing more than hand holding and a little bit of hugging before you marry.
My goodness.
And there was a lot of pressure about having, a lot of purity in your behavior, in your thoughts. So no sexual fantasizing, and acting very pure in public. And there was a lot of focus on how, as a young girl, you were supposed to grow up, maybe get an education. That would be tolerable. But the whole purpose of while you were getting educated past high school was to really be hunting for a husband. And then once you found a husband, so you were supposed to drop out of school and get married and then have a baby within the first year. And your whole purpose in life was really to be a wife and a mother.
Gosh.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
So yeah, and that felt oppressive, by the standards that I held for myself, and that it didn't feel good. And so I started, looking around as I went through graduate school. I obviously got a doctorate in integrative psychology. And as part of that program, we studied a lot about what it means to have culture. We looked at macro culture and microcultural cultural constellation. So macro culture looks at an entire culture, and it looks at what are the observable artifacts.
I see.
And when you look a little deeper, you find the observable values, things like
Okay.
loyalty and safety, security. And then when you look at the core of the culture, that's what you find in deep structures or basic assumptions about the world. So to draw a comparison, so in the United States, we have a lot of artifacts about consumerism. So I
Yeah.
often make the joke that people on Sunday go to worship at the temple of the shopping mall.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. And in dominant American culture, there is a value about loyalty and also about pulling yourself up by your bootstraps, being the self-made man or the self-made woman. Yeah, and the deep structure in America, if I am guessing, would be something like you can do it and you have to do it. Yeah. Now, to draw a comparison to Italy, if we look around at the buildings, we see a lot of very well preserved buildings and buildings that have a lot of cultural heritage. And we
Indeed.
also see a lot of beautiful buildings. So we
Yeah.
see that so based on those artifacts, we see a core value of beauty and of art and of expression.
Indeed. A
Yeah,
lot of value, of course, I would say, and the things maybe that do not change.
right,
That could be an interpretation of things. Like
right.
very connected, by the way, for the guest, Michelle is Dr. Richard's wife. So, and it's really connected, I would say, the first root chakra, when the root chakra is, I would say, exceedingly open. maybe open is not the right word, but okay, the energy is not flowing properly. You're overly connected to the earth. You don't want to change. So that's one of the problem with change. Your roots
Mhm.
are too much into the ground that you don't want to change. And that
Right.
could happen on a societal level.
Yes. Yes, absolutely. Yeah. So if I'm going to make a guess about the deep structure or the basic assumption about Italian culture, it might be something like change is scary, so we better honor our traditions.
Kind of. I like that. That could be a very nice interpretation. Let me ask you
Yeah.
something. What pushed you to do the big jump? Must have been so difficult probably at first. You probably were
Right.
seen as different. What's wrong with you? They probably told you, a lot of bad stuff, not just from your family, also, but friends of your family, and you felt
Mhm.
probably alone, abandoned, not understood, not
Right.
listened, and everything like that. But what made you go through that, barrier? And also, like, I don't care how much people are criticizing me. I want to be me. I want to have a genuine, authentic, like, I won't be my parents' shadow.
Right. Right. So it was a very, very painful process. I had to move. I lost all of my friends. I lost my community. I lost every support system that I had. And again, I basically moved to a different town and started over, knowing no one.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that wasn't particularly fun, but it
No.
was really my graduate school education in integrative psychology that really began me down this path of really looking at religions can be cultures. And every culture has functions and dysfunctions.
Yeah.
And so the function of my religious community is that it did, have the function of a shared ideology
Yeah.
and the function of linking people together through that ideology. But that's a two-sided or a double-edged sword, because the dysfunction of that community is that everybody was going along with the group think. They were going along
Right.
with these ideas that I have come to understand are actually very damaging to humans and damaging to human sexualities and human psyches. Because here's a thing, here's a truth. Most every human is sexual.
Indeed. Indeed.
Yeah,
Why don't we demystify? Why don't you choose
right.
your favorite, most juicy myth about the realm of sexuality? The one that you heard so much that almost, I would say, a mixture of laughing and disgust kind of thing.
Yeah, yeah. How about this one? Sex is bad. You should save it for someone you love.
Ah, nice, nice. One of my favorite, definitely.
Right,
I
right.
I I love it.
Yeah, how does that make any sense?
No, save it. Is it like a pocket? I don't know, a precious coin that you should keep it like in your pocket or
Oh,
something like that.
right, right. Or even worse, sex is dirty. You should only do it with someone you love.
Oh my goodness. What does it mean, dirty? Should I like use a chief or anything like to spray or something? I don't know.
Right,
That's
right,
terrible.
right.
That's terrible.
No,
But
that
yeah,
makes no sense.
no, 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 no. By same things that I heard even here in Italy, and we live 1,000 miles away from each
Right,
other. Same
right,
things I heard that. So,
right, right. And I think that this probably speaks to some intercultural fear that people have about sex and sexuality and sexual expression.
yeah,
I mean, obviously, sexual expression with another person does put us in a place of vulnerability. But again,
indeed.
the beauty of vulnerability is that it leads to deep intimacy.
That's the point.
Yeah,
Like,
and that's a deep human need. People want to be seen. I liked how one person said intimacy should be pronounced into me see.
okay, terrible. No, I sex is a very powerful way of connection for me.
Yes,
Like
yes,
for a human need, sex is a way of expressing connection to a human need. I think a lot of people using as a sense of importance, which is the third human need, and the second human need is actually the desire of changing stuff. And I
yes,
think there has been a um, dysfunctional way of interpreting the second human needs I'm basically creating all this mess and this myth. There are just are creating a lot of confusion. I remember the
Right.
first time as class we did our sex education, not inside the school. We went to it like a, I don't even know how to say in English, just a place where they teach you stuff about sex. I remember that we entered inside. We were like this I'm joking, and we came out like this with the pupils like this. Basically like terrorism by saying that oh yeah, that's a good one. Unprotected sex equal disease. Like
Yeah.
100%. Basically, they're telling you. I remember perfectly. Like, guys, if you don't use protection, basically, even if you touch a dirty woman, you're gonna get diseases. I was like,
Right.
what? That's terrible. How can you say
Right.
things so bad to children? Because we were like, I don't know, 13, 14. When you start, getting to puberty and stuff. It was
Right.
so traumatic. I still remember that day like it was yesterday.
Right, right. Yeah, and Enrico, unfortunately, you're not the only one. I hear these stories about people receiving horrible sex education.
That's terrible. It's
Yeah, I
terrible.
mean, even grown men who don't know basic things. Like
No.
one man, 28 years old, didn't know. He knew that women had periods, but he didn't know that periods involve blood.
Ah,
Yeah.
okay. And what's it's coming out like? I don't know, fairy
Well,
stuff. I don't know, gold, silver. I don't know.
right, right, right. I don't know what he thought.
What is coming out? No, nothing is coming out. It's just pain.
Yeah,
That's
right, right.
terrible. No, I'm sorry.
Yeah,
But I'm not surprised.
right,
I'm not surprised. I don't know if you're familiar with the work of Gabor Mate, is a fantastic psychology of trauma, and he wrote the book, The Myth of Normal, and he says that we are the only species in the entire planet that try to find and make sense of things that are completely unnatural of the biological ways we live and do things in life.
right, right. Yeah. Well,
Uh,
and then again, that's cultural, and in cultural or integrative psychology, we talk about the cultural construction of reality.
yeah,
So, in other words, a lot of this stuff that we do, it's made up, it's arbitrary,
it's completely
you know.
arbitrary, and it changes
Yeah,
so much compare
right,
in
right.
different
And so
cultures.
right, right. And so the rules about sex, sexuality, and sexual expression are again made up. And
Completely.
again, I wonder if a lot of it goes back to leftover generations anxiety. Now,
Okay.
obviously in fundamental Christian religion, they follow what they believe to be the dictates from the Bible, which they
Yeah.
believe to interpret to say that non-marital sex isn't okay. Well, if you're thinking about, roughly 2000-ish years ago, we didn't have access to the same antibiotics and antivirals that we did then.
Yeah.
So it would make sense that for preservation of a community that they would say, okay, wait until you're married in order to have sex and then only have a monogamous relationship, because that actually cuts down on the risk of sexually transmitted infections. But,
Yeah.
here we are again 2000-ish years later,
Yeah.
and we
Nothing
have
changed.
access to
And nothing
antivirals.
changed.
Yeah, yeah. And, we have modern medicine. So there's really no need to have that anxiety like we did, all those many millennia ago.
Uh, it really broke my heart when there was a recent news. I don't remember what state of America they voted against abortion. I don't know.
Right,
Probably you can
right,
help me. I think it was Texas or
right,
Alabama.
right,
Uh, and really, I was shocked. I said, in that part, the karmic energy, I don't know, was completely messed up. We were
right,
like, we returned back to the past, like 2000
right,
years ago, when they basically proclaimed abortion shouldn't be allowed. I was
right,
like, what? Really?
right, right, right. And so it's a punishment for being sexual.
Yeah, it's a punishment for being sexual. Let's talk about healthy sexuality. Also, I would like also to connect with your book, which is remind me again the name, Money, Conscious Money, I think, right?
Yeah. So change your money consciousness, change your life.
Okay.
Yeah, and that's
Please,
available on my website at drmichelledexter.com.
do you have an Audible as well? Do you have I'm a big
Not
Audible
yet.
fan.
Not
Please.
yet. It's an ebook, but you can buy it directly on my website and you'll get an instant download.
Great.
Yeah.
Listen,
So yeah.
why don't you share with your with our audience the connection between money and power and sex, which is so
Yes,
important.
absolutely. It is, absolutely. So, I realize that it might sound like a bit of a stretch. Then why did a sexologist write a book about money? Well, because it's all connected. How you do one thing is how you do everything. And
Very good.
every client that I've ever seen who was having sexuality issues was usually having some type of anxiety about money also, because love, sex, money, and power are all tied up together. If you think about it, money is a tool or a resource. So is sex. Sex and sexuality is like a tool or a resource,
Yeah,
and it's about sharing, it's about exchange, much like money is. So
exactly.
often when I see people with sexual anxieties, they're having anxieties about, am I spending too much money, am I saving enough,
Yeah,
am I being extravagant, am I spending it on people I shouldn't, am I not spending enough, am I hiding myself away? Don't all of these sound like sexual anxieties?
I think it's like also one statement when I reach X income, I can get X girl.
Yes, yes,
The
absolutely.
or if statement, if I get this, then I'll get this.
Right,
And it's very
exactly.
similar. It's very similar.
Right.
Also, because if you think about it, sex, fourth human need, which is equal to art chakra.
Hmm.
Okay.
Yes.
Connection, art, love.
Yes.
Third chakra, Manipura chakra, strength, and how people express their strength in their willpower and masculinity for money.
Right. Right. Absolutely. And Enrico, haven't you seen this where a lot of men say, "Oh, I don't have enough money, therefore I can't date."
Oh, that's terrible. And
Right.
I want to share something with you. That's something that I used to think about myself.
Right.
I was horrible. I was horrible.
Right.
And I remember after a long work that I did on myself through yoga, meditation, and a lot of personal development, I truly realized that how could I talk to myself in that way? How could I
Right.
allow to lower my standards so much? Who, the, who am I to define myself? What is the right standard to get a woman in
Right.
2023? It was horrible, really. But unfortunately, the environment is really strong, but you can be stronger than the environment, but you can do it through a lot of conscious and mindful work. If you
Yes.
don't have that mindful work and really you put your hands in the dirty water, the muddy water, you get tamed by this water. And it's not yours, Michelle. It's not yours. It's just the culture that tells you that. It repeats
Right.
like a broken, DVD that plays this song all over and over in your head. And it's just horrible because people feel miserable. And nobody, as far as I'm concerned, is miserable.
Right. Right. Yes, absolutely. And I'm a big fan, like you, Enrico, of going in and looking at the inner work, because there's a story about that.
Yeah.
Did you absorb it from what you read? Did you absorb it from your friends? Did you absorb it from your family? Did you absorb it from the television? And really parsing that apart for yourself about, where did I learn this? And number two, do I want to continue to believe it?
It's like a puzzle to me. Like you get pieces of pieces, family, friends, television, TV shows, and stuff, and it become a puzzle. And then it becomes like a tattoo on your skin. But then you realize, how the hell I got this tattoo from? Where does it come from? It is
Right.
not mine. At the
Right.
beginning, you just feel hopeless and, like kind of pathetic and, what's wrong with me, blah, blah, blah. But then you realize, what the hell is that shit? Where is this coming from? And then you
Right.
debuild this thing. Because guess what? In the same way that you can build this stuff, this is coming from family, this is coming from friends, this is coming from that, you can debuild this. You can unbuild this thing, taking all the pieces. Okay, this is coming from that. This is coming from that. This is coming from that. And guess what? Nobody of these places is actually yours.
Right. Right. And once you realize that, then you have the freedom to choose what you actually do want to believe and what values you want to espouse for yourself.
Exactly. Exactly. And why don't we talk about something that really traumatized people a lot in
Right.
this age of indulgence, a lot of, external input. People don't know how to focus. Can you keep a long-term relationship while maintaining high levels of sexuality, sensuality, and desire?
I have good news, and the answer is yes. So, contemporary neuroscience shows us that the brain loves novelty. So, anything that you two can do together that's new, interesting, or different, I highly recommend it because that's how you're going to keep your love alive.
Yeah.
So, I don't care if it's simple things like, hey, we've never tried this board game together, or really big things like, hey, let's take this trip and jump off of a cliff into the ocean, whatever. Do something
Yeah.
so that you can feel like we have these shared experiences together. We're taking on the world together. We're experiencing newness and freshness together.
Yeah. Yeah. You basically allow your energy flowing. And I don't know, are you familiar with the work of Jay Shetty? He's a monk.
No, I'm
Uh,
not.
he wrote a beautiful book. It's called Eight Rules of Love. One of the rules he said, don't watch TV with your partner. And I said, why shouldn't I watch TV with your partner? Okay, there's nothing wrong about watching TV with your partner. The vast majority of the couples are watching TV every single day in the bedroom, and the bedroom should be a place of expression of love and
Right,
compassion and sex and sensuality. And people are just basically kill their brain watching garbages
right,
together, but they're not together because they're not connecting. They're really watching just garbage and bullshit, and
right,
it
right,
this destroys the element of new novelty, creation, and do something new. When you
right,
basically your routine is work, and you get to work, you eat, and you consume whatever you consume with your partner. That's a very good recipe for an unfaithful marriage.
right. Absolutely. And that's where I think a lot of people do end up, unfortunately, becoming either in sexless marriages or where a partner steps out and has an affair, is because things do get stale.
Yeah.
Now, I want to talk about the other side of that, and that life in the 21st century is incredibly hectic. In America, a lot of people overwork. I don't know exactly how it is in Italy, but I imagine that a lot of people
Yeah.
overwork also.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so, given that, sometimes you're going to have to schedule opportunities for sex.
Yeah.
And that means that a couple needs to have, a date, whether it's Wednesday morning or Saturday night, something where they know that that's their opportunity to do something, maybe very simple, like maybe going out and getting an ice cream cone together. And then afterwards, that's an opportunity for sex. Now, I noticed I said opportunity. I didn't say requirement.
Yeah. Absolutely. Now, I would say that the hectic life we live, which is true, unfortunately, a lot of countries we tend to overwork, and this
Mhm.
actually, it's not really good for the productivity. Like if you
Right,
read a lot of productivity's book, you know that you cannot squeeze a lemon more than 80%. You actually get minus rather than the good
right,
stuff. And we're doing exactly the opposite. We're squeezing the lemon on 120%, which are
right,
way over the capacity, and this impinge, the relationship, and people get stressed and overwhelmed and overloaded, and they cannot perform properly. But let me ask you this: if you basically schedule party, time with your partner, doesn't this destroy basically the biggest, I would say, ingredient, the most important ingredient of sexuality and desire, which is exploration, which is new, getting to
right.
new stuff.
Right. And so that is a concern, but I'm just talking about the people that find themselves being incredibly
Yeah,
busy and being very, very overburdened by their responsibilities of house cleaning and childcare
yeah,
and their work responsibilities, that this is just a coping strategy. Of course, I would love it if we could all just, have our lives be completely spontaneous and love making happen, when it feels right.
hmm,
But like I said, we do live in the 21st century, and that's not always going to be the way that we live our lives, at least
yeah.
in certain chapters of our lives.
I agree. I agree. I think, but one of the good things I would say is that our ability to adapt to the environment,
Right.
and
Right.
despite the increasing hours of work, there are still, new companies. and countries, they're actually adopting, new strategies of, productivity, because they actually realize that working, I don't know, more than 60 hours a week is not sustainable. It's not, it can be sustainable for, I don't know, for short term, no, on the long term. And if we want to think long term, which is another problem, again, think about how difficult it is for people to save money because they cannot see the future and they have a problem, see things on the long term, and it's this very same thing that happens to relationship. They just,
Right.
Short term, long term, who knows? They don't
Right.
plan it.
Right.
They don't plan anything.
Right, right. And I see that communication issue in relationships over a number of things, about sex, about money, about child rearing, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah. And this is where, communication is a big deal. And I always tell people, look, I'd rather have you err on the side of over communication than on the side of under communication.
Uh,
And it's
how
yeah,
did you learn express and basically verbalize what you
mhm,
felt? Because
right.
nobody teaches you that, and I don't
Right.
think that you learned that at the university.
My gosh, I wish they would teach you that at university.
Even though
You
you,
know,
you are a psychologist, that's, gosh, it's
yeah.
even more concerning.
Right, right. It is, and you're right. A lot of people don't learn those skills, and they didn't have parents or teachers who could show them. So I start talking to them about look around in your environment. Who do you see? Even if it's somebody on television or a fictional character,
Yeah.
who do you see in your environment who models what it is to have happy, healthy relationships and effective communication? What do you see those people doing? And then to start copying them. And
That's nice.
secondly, yeah, to start, just from the heart. What does your heart want you and your partner to know? What is your heart's desire? In America, and I imagine Italy too, that we are often so much in our heads that we don't drop into our hearts. But if you listen to your heart, it probably has a very, very different narrative than your head. Head will say things like, well, we should be having sex 3 times a week, but heart might be saying, actually, I might be more happy with a really extended lovemaking on Saturday when we can just relax and take our time and really have that deep intimacy. And that's all I need. And it's okay if that's your story.
Yeah, absolutely. So long as it works for you, it
Right.
works. Absolutely.
Right.
But the sense
Right.
of spontaneity should be kept every
Hmm.
time. A sense of
Right.
exploration, inner child work. Okay.
Right.
You should never lose the connection to your inner child. It isn't just about being playful. It's also about
Right.
sex, exploring, do stuff, do all the dirty stuff. Jesus.
Yes.
I mean,
Yes.
reading the Kama Sutra is fun, okay, and not just for the sex and position and the fun stuff. Also, what's the communication? What is the meaning beyond these poses? Because they're poses, okay, that you basically experience with your soulmate, okay, or partner that you wish to desire and share what you want to share.
Right.
It's so
Yeah.
important, and people feel we chop that part,
Hmm.
which is
Right.
the second chakra. You remember we talk
Yes.
about that. It's just pleasure, feeling pleasure, and we deny people to feel pleasure. How dare we do such things? That's just, I would say, so unmoral, really.
Right. Right. And inner child work is about, going back to those parts of you, and looking at, okay, so if I'm having some discomfort with how my body looks or feels, can I go back to when I was a child and I simply enjoyed my body? Little children are exploring the environment, like, ooh, sand, ooh, let me feel that. No, paint, let me put my hands in that. And
Yeah.
and ooh, paste, ooh, let me put my hands in that. And they're really unabashed about exploring that sensual environment. So if you can reclaim that for yourself, and I'm not saying go back and play with paste, but if you can explore that sensuality, that attitude of exploration like a child, that's fun. If you can go
Absolutely.
back and you can remember what it is to be a child who doesn't worry about your body, the way that it looks or feels in space, and just allow it to be, that's nice.
How would you help someone to do that? For me,
Well,
I
yeah,
was reading basically books about sex that demystify, certain belief, like what we discussed before. But
Right.
it worked with me, but it
Hmm.
it doesn't mean that it works with everyone. So what
Right.
are your strategies and ideas on that?
Right. So I've created something called Integrative Biofield Healing Arts, which I really do believe is the future of psychology. We've really
Nice.
moved beyond just talking in psychology. Talk is good. Talk therapy is good because it gives you really good insights and it gives you good coping strategies. And at the same time, sometimes you cannot talk yourself out of an issue, and we need
Yeah.
more.
Yeah.
And so, in a lot of my work, I do a little bit of hypnotic regression to getting people just into light trance to just ask them, like, okay, where's your first memory of where that's coming from? And they'll
Okay.
often tell me something about childhood that often I find upsetting. So, one 50-year-old man was telling me about how he was 3, it was Christmas Day, and he was, whining like 3-year-olds do about, I want the presents.
Mm-hmm.
And his mom got mad at him and got out the broom and whacked him over the head with it. Yeah,
Gosh.
yeah.
Yes.
And so then he remembered sitting in the corner and crying and saying, I don't want anything anymore.
Bloody hell.
Yeah, so that's a wounded childhood moment, and what we did is we did some acupressure that's specifically designed to
Yeah.
access the
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
acupoints to release the emotion. Because
Wow.
obviously, I mean, here he was struggling in his life, struggling to keep a girlfriend, struggling to buy a house, struggling to have a better job. Again, sex and money are all tied up together, right? Yeah,
Yeah.
and so we cleared that memory with acupressure, and after a few minutes, I said, okay, so what's true? And he said, it's okay to want things. And I said, yes, it is.
Can acupuncture
Mhm.
lead to better chakra energy flow?
Yes, because in the biofield, there's many, many parts. And I refer to the chakras as the train stations and the meridians as the train tracks.
Okay. Yeah, it makes
Yeah.
sense. It
Yeah.
makes
So
sense.
you just, when you're working with the biofield or the energy bodies, you just have to know which technique do I need. And the
Mm-hmm.
innate of the body will tell you, the innate intelligence of the body. And so when I work with people, the innate, will say this is chakra work or this is meridian work.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's really fascinating. I did
Right.
acupuncture when I had a lower back injury. I didn't know anything about acupuncture. It's a very fascinating topic. And by the
Right.
way, if you have any acupuncturists or expert in acupuncture, please send them over to the Golden Jump podcast. I would like
Yeah.
to to know more about this topic because it's truly fascinating. And I think that if done properly, along with, I would say, deep, thoughtful question, a lot of people can heal.
Oh,
Mm.
absolutely. There's many cultures of acupuncture that have originated around the world. And interestingly enough, the French style focuses upon emotions. And
Okay.
so they've developed some techniques, for specifically like, clearing the body or the system
Yeah,
of, things like anger, rage, resentment, emotional pain, shame. I could go on, but you get the picture.
absolutely. No, it sounds extremely fascinating. I think we should yeah, inviting over maybe I don't know someone
Yes.
from the Bamboo studio over the Golden Show podcast to really get, dive deeper into this topic. Let me ask you one more question, which is my favorite. What would you say to your inner child right now, and what would she say back to you?
I think my inner child today is really, really happy with me. She's
Nice.
happy that I've looked at those stories about being raised in that religion and having looked at them and said, no, I'm not going to follow these stories. I'm not going to follow these dictates anymore. And I think she'd be really, really happy with me for leaving, even though it was so hard, and making my own way in the world and experimenting and trying out new ideas and new philosophies and coming to a place where here I am very happily married because that's a choice that works for me, you know. But at the same time, holding the space open to continue to explore, whatever comes down the path.
Exactly. What would she say to you, your
I
inner
think
child?
that, yeah, and I think if my inner child could speak to all the other inner children, that she would encourage them the same. Look at your stories. change them so that they suit you. Choose them so that they honor your values, that they honor what's most important to you. It's okay to be sexual. It's safe to be sexual. It's good to be sexual. You just have to find the boundaries that work for you, that keep you safe.
Hallelujah. Fantastic. Let me ask you one more question. Are you familiar with Dr. Levine, Peter Levine, on trauma?
Yes. Yes.
Awakening the Tiger is one,
Yes.
the book that I read, where he basically says that we have our innate capacity, that we used to have the innate capacity, like tigers and our other animals, to shake off the trauma through movement. So if you capture a tiger, okay, and let's take 30 seconds frame, and you capture, so in order to get off the trauma, the tiger needs 30 seconds, and then you capture the tiger at the 25th second. So she needs 5 more seconds to process the trauma. When she wakes up, the first thing that she's gonna do, she's gonna tremble and shake it as much as possible to finish the process. And
Right.
according to Peter Levine, we lost this ability to shake off trauma like tigers and other animals. What is your opinion on that? Do you think that we used to be able to heal ourselves in a much easier way than we can do it right now?
Well, I'm not entirely convinced that we've lost the ability. Out of the hundreds and hundreds of techniques that I use, one of them on my menu is what I call the squat and the shake. And you literally get into a squat position and just shake your body randomly for a good solid minute. And what I have found is that that will help the nervous system to regulate, and it will help to shed some of the trauma.
Okay. So do you think it's still inside ourselves, and
I think
maybe
it is.
we kind of lost maybe the connection, not the ability, the connection to this inner power of us?
Well, sure, because culturally it's not acceptable that you've had a trauma and you stand there and shake. People would look at you like, who's that crazy person?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah. But
that's nice. That
yeah,
makes sense.
yeah. But I would say that, look, there's plenty of things that you can do in order to help your nervous system regulate after traumatic circumstances, that you can do, in the bathroom, or, like if you're in a restaurant or something, just excuse yourself and if you're in a public place, and just go someplace private, and yeah, just shake your body, hold your forehead. Um, your forehead has lots of acupressure points on it. In the middle of your forehead, right between your eyeballs and your hairline, there's 2 really important points right there. And in acupuncture and acupressure, they're generally referred to as the emotional release points. So if you place your hand across your forehead, you are holding those points. And interestingly enough, we've actually been able to show in brain scans that sends more blood flow into the prefrontal cortex, which is, of course, the most rational part of the brain. So people naturally, intuitively do this. You'll see this, like when people go, "Oh my gosh," and they put their hand across their forehead. They're
No.
intuitively comforting themselves.
Oh my God. That would
Yeah.
say it's a tapping mechanism, maybe. A
Yes.
tapping
Yes.
technique. No, I've never
Right.
realized that. I've never
Right.
realized that.
Right, right. Yeah, and people drum their fingers because there's acupressure points on the ends of the fingers, so that when they're drumming their fingers, that's stress relief. Or you'll see people who will pinch the bridge of their nose. Guess
Yeah.
what? Those are the bladder 1 points. Those are also stress relief points.
Okay. Also, that one, huh? That you do
Yeah.
like
Oh
when
yeah.
you're,
Yeah. Oh yeah. Or when they grab the back of the neck. Yeah.
yeah,
Those are all the occiput points for memory back there. So yes, people naturally, intuitively know what to do a bit of stress relief for themselves.
you blew my mind with that. You know that. No, that's beautiful.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
So, a lot of energy psychology has to do with doing what we do naturally just a little more. So hold your head, hold your forehead a little longer, pinch the bridge of your nose a little longer, hold the back of your neck a little longer, shake a little longer. Just take the time to literally do it for a full 2 minutes. Heck, set a timer on your phone and do it for 2 minutes. And most people tell me at the end of a 2-minute intervention like that they feel much better and that they have an entirely new perspective.
You see, like motion, emotions. So through
Mhm.
motion, you create emotions.
Right.
And we live in a world where we're seated. more than 10, 12, some people even more than 12 hours. And how can you create emotions? How can you create flows of energy if you're not moving?
Right. Right. So yes, movement is very important. Yeah. Even if you just, stand up and jump up and down a few times, that can help.
Exactly. No, I did the training with Anadia Judith. Probably you
Mm,
heard. Okay, on the chakra healing system. She was an amazing practitioner. Really learned a lot. I did learn a lot of interesting insights about, my childhood, some trauma that was, blocked in some of the lower chakras. And I'm gonna share something with you, which is part of what Henry the Teacher, which is my business, is going towards. A, a lot of things are already within us. We buy things we don't need, not just things like, I don't know, phones or computers or anything like that. Also courses, degrees, endless certifications with absolutely no value whatsoever. And what we only need is open our third chakra, that one, which is pure intuition. We are intuitive creatures because if we were not intuitive, we would be dead 2,000 years ago. Our, that's not just the third chakra. It's part of our prefrontal cortex, which is, as human beings, we have the biggest prefrontal cortex in the entire animal system. And we allow people always to tell us what we need to do, what we need to think. Buy this course so you will get rich. Do this session with me. I will give you that. And guess what? You already have the answers within us. You just need to listen to yourself a little bit more. Of course, if we
right.
want to work one on one with someone, I truly believe in that value. But I think that, and I've been doing courses for many years, thinking about after I do that, I will be able to achieve X epsilon. And it's very similar about, the sex things that we said before. If I got this, I will get this. It's all very connected. But if you allow yourself to speak from the heart, not with the head, really use your intuition. After all, there is just one chakra, which is between your heart and your intuition, which is the mouth. And the mouth allows you to speak up, to say what you really feel and want to do.
Right. Absolutely. And to add to that, Enrico, I would also say, go ahead and interview those parts. Typically when we're thinking, again, we're focusing just on the head. But if you interview your throat, it might have a very interesting, narrative to give you.
Yeah,
Yeah. And if you interview your heart, heart, I'm giving you a microphone. What do you want to say? Again, it might have a very interesting and very different narrative than head.
fantastic. Michelle, I could listen to you for hours. You're an amazing speaker. And please consider doing an audible for your book because your voice is very nice. And people,
Well, thank you.
you should do an audible. Really, I will be your first listener because I'm a big audiobook consumer.
Okay.
I I told the same to Richard though. Do an audible.
Point taken. Thank you, Enrico.
Okay. And thank you so much for coming to a Golden Child podcast. It was truly an honor listening and learning from you.
It was my pleasure to be here.
And thank you, listeners, to tuning in with this fantastic episode to the Golden Child podcast. A podcast to help you reconnect with your inner child, to live the life you truly desire. Namaste from Trieste and San Diego, United States. Thank you. Namaste.